After that BMF title fight, why was Max versus Charles 2, for such a high level matchup that was, so one-sided? The answer isn't all in the grappling. It actually starts on the feet. If you don't know my boy Charles de Bronx, aka the most well-rounded grappler of all time, aka the spin back demon, Charles is the ultimate offensive weapon. Excellent pressure fighter, and he put also my boy Max into the cooker off rip. At the start of the fight, he attacks first, chopping that lead leg of Max, and starts walking him down. When he initiates the clinch, the instinctive reaction is to pull out the clinch. This is how Charles lands his biggest strikes, and this is how he knocked down Justin Gaethje. Max pushes away and tries to angle off to his left, and Charles Oliveira, being the excellent pressure fighter he is, starts shuffling towards that side and hurting him off with right hooks. At this point, Max is understandably flustered, especially as he bounces off the cage, where you do not want to be when you're fighting Charles Oliveira. The main reason is because it makes it easier for Charles to grab you, which is where he's most dangerous at, the clinch and the grappling. As Max tries to dip out to his right, Oliveira herds him off and cuts him off to his left. Leaving Max to no options and in a bad position, Max is forced to clinch, and instinctively Charles locks up that body lock and takes him for a ride. And this was a recipe for Charles to get most of his takedowns. In round 2, however, Charles brilliantly baits out a kick from Max Holloway to reactively shoot on him and take him down. This is a staple of Charles Oliveira, the reactive double leg. But the act of baiting Max on the feet was so smart by Charles. Max himself mentioned how in the Volkanovski trilogy, Volk was so hard to fight because he would always go first and third. Volk would throw a strike, Max would try to counter, and Volk would counter that counter. And this is exactly what Charles did, except with grappling. My go is so brilliant. Damn, I feel bad for Max. There is no way you could expect a striker like Max Holloway to get up. Very little escapes, let alone survive underneath Charles. So we do gotta give Max some credit for surviving down there. And in the 5th round of the striking exchanges, Charles Oliveira, after dominating Max for 4 rounds, was just striking off of pure confidence. Like on that night, Charles could throw a 360 tornado kick, and that shit would somehow land on Max Holloway's chin. I mean, just a masterful performance. Another classic Oliveira strike is his rear hand into a head kick. I mean, bro, that night, Charles was the #1 pound for pound fighter in the world. I mean, that was his Cody Garbrandt moment. Like, bro, he might have even beat Islam and Ilya. Both of them that same night. Okay, I'm gassing it. But just a masterful performance, which gives me hope for his future matchups. However, for the Max camp, the other half of this fight, his errors in this fight paid big time. And the main issue was not making Charles respect his power. At 155, Max does have stopping power, but he needed to sit on his counters. He needed to stand his ground. Looking at Charles' previous fights against strikers like Max Holloway, Ilia Topuria, Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, they were all tough fights for him. And the main reason for that was that you can see a moment where Charles feels their power. Now don't get me wrong, he still pressures them, but he doesn't just throw himself into them like he did against Max. He actually had to be calculated with his strikes and be more careful when advancing. Against a guy like Gamrot was also tagging up Charles Oliveira, but he did not have any power. One, because he just isn't a good striker, his form and technique isn't as good as Max. But when Charles ate his punches, he just kept ramping the pressure, which ultimately led Gamrot to the fence, just like how Max Holloway did, which converts into an easy bodylock takedown for Charles Oliveira. If Max was able to get the respect of Charles and stand his ground, Charles' shots in space are not good, and that's why in round 5, when Charles shot in space, he got reversed. He needs the cage to get a good bite on his bodylock. For Max, keeping the fight in space wasn't just about the strikes, it's about the grappling defense. And because Charles is so much bigger and just so much stronger, he was a decade lightweight, Max just moved to lightweight. Max fighting in space would aid his takedown defense. His footwork would help him evade shots and force Charles to reach for a takedown, where he has much less power compared to getting a deep bite on a body lock or a double leg. And that is why this fight wasn't close. It ultimately came down to Max Holloway not getting any respect. Max Holloway was conceding too much ground, and this fight really reminds me of his TKZ fight, where Max was conceding ground, giving up too much space, and TKZ was just chasing him all over the octagon. Until he planted his feet, bit down on his mouthpiece, and threw fucking leather. However, it is easier for me to just say that, because as Max got older, he changed his style to be more conservative and counter heavy. He's not that same 25, 27-year-old who was all about pressure and breaking people. If Max had that same style, I think that Charles fight would have looked much different. But it is what it is, and Charles Oliveira gets it back. And Max Holloway will come back. He's not done. To rehash my points, everyone struggles underneath Charles Oliveira's grappling. Underneath every single striker. The takedown defense can be easily worked on, and the simple tactic change, depending on who he's fighting, sitting on his punches and making people feel his power, is something I know he would do. Come on, his IQ is too high. He's a very adaptable fighter. So all in all, Max Holloway's stock did take a little bit of a dip, but if you're a Max Holloway fan, hold on to it. He still is an elite fighter, and I still think he's going to be a contender in this division. I still believe in him. I still love him. However, for Charles, his stock is going to the moon! What was that? Charles is 5-0 in rematches? Armin is cooked. Ilya is fucked. Islam! We want that shit!